questions on it? At all? No? All right. All right. So the next one is to, I lost the page. Next one is to cast the ballot for Dutchess County BOCES. I don't have the stuff in front of me. Cheryl, can you
Yeah,
read
hold
it?
on. Yep. Yep, hold on one second. Hold on one second. I have a problem with the live stream. I'm hearing it, so I just need to shut that off from my side. Sorry.
All right. Let's see.
All right, so can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby directs the district clerk to cast an efficient ballot to vote for. You have 2 openings and 3 candidates. So Tom Hurley is running from Millbrook, Mike Rail from Beacon, and Gully Stanford from Hyde Park. So you need to vote on.
So why don't we just go, who are your 2? We'll go around to everybody. Let's see, who am I missing? Paul, Perry.
There he is.
Hey, Tom.
Is there
You
any
there?
information for Gully Stanford? He didn't submit any letter or anything?
He did, Tom.
Yeah, like a month ago, maybe.
I didn't see it. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, the two incumbents is fine. So
I don't think Gully or Mike are incumbents,
No.
are they?
I thought Michael was on the board now.
Mike is.
Yeah.
Mike is?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're Tom and Mike.
Yes.
Jen?
That's, yeah, I don't really, I mean, I don't know any of them off besides what they said. I don't even know if, but yeah, they seem fine. Tom and Mike, what was Mike's last name again? I have it.
Real.
Real.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Howard?
Yep, Tom and Mike.
Same thing. John?
I favor Tom and Gully.
Okay. Claudia?
You're muted.
Tom.
Claudia.
Yeah, Tom and Mike.
Okay. Paul?
I'm good with that. Mike's been around for a long time.
And I was going to go Tom and Gully. I don't know Mike really at all, but I met Gully at one of the Dutchess County School Board meetings like them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5-2 is Tom and Mike.
Okay.
All right. So do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. All right. Very good. Let's see. Approve BOCES budget. Do we have a motion on that?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Anybody? I never know if anybody's stuck on mute or if,
No,
Everybody looks good.
okay. All right. So All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Okay, very good. All right, so next we move to the capital project proposal review by Mr.
Let me let
Mr.
Mike in.
Rico Suave do his
Hi,
presentation.
Mike.
Hi.
You give me that even with my hair like this, huh?
I was talking about Mike.
Ah.
I
Mike's
knew I
muted.
could get you to call out, Brian.
Is Mike Ragusa in a waiting room anywhere?
He's not. Do you want me to, I don't have his phone number, so I can't text him.
I will text him and actually, Caroline, do you have his? Thank you. All right. So while he's not here, I do want to thank him because he worked pretty diligently on getting information in order to be able to make some recommendations right before. And this is nobody's fault but my own. I do want to give you a very short budget update. I should have told Cheryl, and it's going to be about a minute because not a heck of a lot has changed. But I do want to just share with you very quickly that there is no real news except that the picture actually seems to be getting just a little bit bleaker. So,
Oh, good.
Yeah. So in addition to the already projected $10 to $15 billion budget deficit, it's now being projected that the state's going to lose an additional $13.3 billion as a direct result of coronavirus. So there's a significant deficit. There's another study that says that New York State will lose about $61 billion in revenue over the next 4 years. And there's yet another study that says that the state's going to lose what's a staggering $243 billion. That's a $250 billion over the course of the entire recovery. So it's not going to get neater anytime soon.
And this is all because of Corona, nothing to do with mismanagement or.
Well, yeah.
Sorry.
Can't
Anyway.
answer. But yeah, I think the studies talk about it in terms of the coronavirus. So right now, there are projections out there that the state aid losses for schools are going to range from between 20 and 50%, but closer to the 20% side right now. For us, every 10% of a foundation aid loss represents about $224,000. So as we've built this budget, we've protected ourselves from losses of up to $300,000. So we're in as best shape as we could possibly be, but even at the low end of that scale, where they're projecting maybe up to 20% of the state aid loss, that's $450,000. So we would have to find another $150,000. So right now we're already in the process of scheduling and having discussions about developing and prioritizing tiered and potential cuts if mid-year cuts end up becoming necessary. So I just wanted to give that very quick update and ask if you had any questions.
Well, the only question or comment I actually would have is I know these studies are all over the place. They're all bad, of course, but until Governor Cuomo decides to release the information, I do not believe that it's going to make much difference, and what these studies say until this stuff's released.
Yeah, I mean, these numbers, to me, this is a really good way of throwing out some dirty laundry without getting any of the dirt on yourself. You just say, oh, that damn virus. Anyway, this isn't really for political discussions, but one thing, Brian, and I just want to, we did push pre-K, for another year, right?
Yeah, pre-kindergarten is not able to be in this budget.
Okay. Yeah, there was a question about that, And I thought we had said that at a public session, but I couldn't remember if it was public or an executive session. So I just wanted to get that sort of on the record. Okay.
Yep.
Any questions for Brian about that?
The only thing I would mention, guys, I would not underestimate the economic impact over the next few years.
Oh,
I think it's going to be shocking. So,
yeah.
you know, I don't think I'd just shrug it off.
And there's no updates on calendars, right? Like
No.
votes and all that. I mean, we're just sort of going day to day. Okay.
Which really hampers us, frankly. I mean, we can be ready, but everything is based on whatever the budget vote is going to be, because we count backwards for all the deadlines. So it's just super challenging for us.
Okay.
And Tom, you're right. And TRS and ERS are going to be significant problems moving forward, because they're always based on how the market goes. And we're going to be looking at very significant jumps over the next several years, I would say. There may be a year lag, but it's going to be significant. Okay, so on to capital projects, if there are no other questions. So right now, we're really at the point where we need to make some final decisions on our $100,000 and $175,000 projects for next year. And the reason why these decisions need to be made is because we have to be in a position of allowing our voters to understand the projects that we're going to be doing. And that happens in the budget brochure that we still need to complete based on whatever timeline it is that we know based for the board for the budget vote. So we've talked about $100,000 and $175,000 projects for quite some time now. It's exciting that it's got it in the budget and that we've been able to keep it in the budget because we've been able to satisfy a lot of short-term capital project goals when the big projects, the long-term goals aren't happening yet. So, but there are some constraints on the annual projects, and they include, you have to have a single prime, because you need to be able to have a simple enough project to be able to get it done within a year. They're generally a standalone, simpler project, and the projects generally should be within one building because of the constraints. So while we're ticking off a lot of the projects, $100,000 and $175,000 of a project isn't all that big of a project. So it's challenging oftentimes to be able to find projects that are within one building. So we've considered several different projects that I'll share with you, and then we have some strong recommendations about two that we'd like to move forward on. So one of the projects that was considered was a high school traffic and high school secure vestibule safety project. You'll remember that in each of middle school and Alden Place, we now have secure vestibules. We want to, of course, build that out in our other buildings as well. And the high school project is a relatively small project, but we've coupled that with a traffic pattern project that will explain, and we were looking at that one. There are emergency lighting upgrades that need to happen at Elm, Alden, and the middle school. We've looked at each of those projects. There's an electrical generator at the middle school that we've been talking about for quite some time that actually ended up coming in over budget to be considered ultimately here. And we've also acknowledged that we're looking at our smart bond for that opportunity. Then we have our middle school fire alarm upgrade, and that also came in over budget. We wouldn't be able to accomplish that with either of the two projects. So what we're looking at and what we'd like to discuss with you tonight and explain a little bit about our reasoning is we've landed on strongly recommending the high school safety project, and that includes that secure vestibule and building that out in our third of four buildings. And it also includes finally, at long last, remedying our issue that we have with our traffic pattern, because frankly, we understand that that's a significant safety issue, and the longer that we live with it, the greater the liability there is. And then we have Elm Drive electrical upgrades that is actually a plan to complete in two different phases. And we'll go into that a little bit. First, phase 1 would be in this year, and phase 2 would be in next. But it's enough of a project that you'll see that they are able to be standalone and upgraded, and that's important. They can build, those projects can build off of each other in those 2 phases. I see some matched. Oh, okay. Oh. Thanks, Caroline. So let's start off with the high school project. So you'll remember that you need to have at least $10,000 of money on the interior of a building in order to associate any site work with that project and allow the site work to be aidable as well. So we wouldn't want to do a site work in isolation, because then we would lose all of the 23% of aid. So we've coupled a project that includes taking the doors from the high school current vestibule, moving them back so we're in a position to be able to create that vestibule and have people in that same secure way enter into that area and not be able to come in until buzzed in. I have to share a screen with you. Let's not mess this up. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay. So what this is you could recognize it pretty quickly that it's the high school, and it's the road that goes uphill towards the parking lot. So in our current world, this gray piece, and are you able to see my cursor still?
Yes.
Great. This gray piece does not currently exist. It actually exists as a sidewalk. What we are proposing to do is actually to maintain the same flow of traffic and create a single file drop-off lane. We have 2 problems that contribute significantly to something to a safety issue. So in this area, we have parent drop-off. In the morning, we have, and at high and in the afternoon at pickup, we have parents down here waiting to be able to pick their kid up. Then we have other cars that decide and take it upon themselves to come into the left-hand lane and pass those cars that are waiting and then come back into the right-hand lane because they don't want to wait, or they have an appointment, or they have to pick their kid up in the parking lot, or whatever their reasoning may be. It's been an issue for a while. That's coupled with the fact that when we have basketball or volleyball practice, we also have parents lining up here down by the gym, and we have the same issue. We have people passing in the left-hand lane, irrespective of whether or not they can see a car coming over the hill, and that's just kind of common practice here. It is impossible for us to be able to staff that all the time. So what we're proposing here is that we're ripping up the sidewalk here because there's already a sidewalk. We don't need 2 sidewalks. We are replacing the stairs over here. And this is actually going to be, we're proposing that we're creating a single file drop-off lane. So people can wait here safely, and then we can have cars passing. And then of course we're going to, we'll have our own version of signage and markers, but that's going to prevent an issue where people are passing on the left. I want to thank Mike Ragusa. He had a meeting with the architect. He's a landscape architect, and worked. He brought the information back and worked with this on the civil side to be able to come up with this plan. You can see that there's stairs that need to be moved over here when if we rip up the walkway, we would actually be relocating the stairs to here and reconstructing it. So what questions, well, first of all, Mike Ragusa or Mike Harris, is there anything that you'd like to add?
You spelled it out pretty clearly, Brian.
Mike Ragusa?
I'm trying to unmute. Am I unmuted?
No, we hear you now.
Oh, you're muted.
Oh.
You're muted, Mike.
Mike, push
There
the
you go.
space bar and talk.
There we go. How's that?
Good.
Okay. So that about covers it. I mean, moving the doors in and getting rid of the traffic from when the cars go around to try to go around and the buses are leaving in the morning and the afternoon. That's our problem over there. So
What was the original plan? I mean, did we really think that that little tiny circle there was going to be enough for all the, when this was originally designed? Because the one thing that bothers me about this is I feel like we're spending, $100 and whatever $1,000 to fix a problem because parents don't want to sit in the parking lot and wait for their kids. And, I mean, if they went down to the parking lot and sat, none of this would be an issue.
Yeah. So I guess your first question first, I don't know on the original design, that wasn't, the original design would have happened about 17 years ago. So I don't know what people were thinking then, but point well taken. In this instance, this is actually where the drop off is. So it's,
Right.
it's not, it's just that kids get dropped off here. They wouldn't even, parents, wouldn't even be able to come in here, drop their kids off and have them walk. We actually require that they be dropped off here because it's a safety issue with too many cars in the parking lot. And that would be a very dangerous situation. So it's just circumstances that, if they don't drop them off fast enough, or a kid decides that they don't want, if a student has to go into the trunk to get their instrument, that holds a lineup for an additional 30 seconds. And you get enough children that do that, and you have the backlog. So it's kind of just an actual real world problem that we deal with here. That's just a heck of a safety issue for us.
And do they drop, like, let's say I'm not one of the first 4 cars and I want to drop my kid off. Does my kid actually sit in the car until I get up to the circle, or do they just get out wherever they can and walk up?
they sit in the car till they get their circle.
Really?
Yep.
Is that required? That they stay in the car, Brian? Because I noticed as you've done that, but now you don't have a sidewalk, so there's no way for anybody to really get out on the passenger side.
Nobody does that. That's why we're planning on taking that sidewalk out. Nobody gets out by the sidewalk. They wait right till they get the front door. And for parent pickup in the afternoon, the first parent that comes, we can't even get them to pull all the way up. They stop right in front of the front door.
My concern is with this, instead of looking piecemeal, this whole traffic entry in by the middle school and the egress out, and instead of doing a piecemeal here, why wouldn't you have a traffic and safety study done of the whole ball of wax and approach it? Somebody may come up with a different idea of making something one way, other than this crazy exit that's currently in use that nobody uses. Well, few people use. I'd rather see everything looked at all at once rather than start looking at this one specific problem.
Yeah, thanks for that observation, Howard. So one of the things that we did was we did look globally at this. Can I just, perhaps there's something that we're missing. I'm wondering why we might be referring to this as a piecemeal solution, because we weren't necessarily thinking that that this wasn't gonna remedy the whole issue. So is there something that you were thinking about that perhaps we should?
Other than, where you have the do not enter sign coming in off of Alden, and the whole thing is confusing. And I understand that of this specific problem with the high school, but I would think you should have a study, a traffic and safety engineer come in and look at the whole entry and exit, including the problem with the parents and the pickup here, and tie this all in together so we don't have to keep doing bits and pieces to correct what wasn't done properly to begin with.
So Howard, what else is wrong?
Well, not with the high school, but coming in off of Alden, when
Yeah.
you come up to the middle school where the gate is,
Right.
you have a do not enter sign which people enter, and then you have the thing flow through the parking lot and around in front of the middle school entrance is a one-way going down. However, if there's buses there and people are in a parking lot, then they go back out the inn, if you want to look at it that way.
The gate is closed in the morning and the afternoon when the buses are there.
Right.
They can't come up the hill.
I think Howard's point is look at the whole, because there must have been a traffic study done when this building was approved
No.
that said,
The requirement was 2 entrances for fire emergency, because I know originally they didn't want to have the Alden entrance.
right.
But it was required that there be 2 entrances, so that in case there was an emergency and one entrance was blocked.
So they felt that this flow, because the thing with doing a whole traffic study, I mean, we probably could, really do the traffic or the roadway over it. The problem is, when are we ever going to have the money to do it? But I would have thought that there was a traffic study that would have said, how many cars can go through that circle at any, I mean, that circle is sort of useless. I mean, it's so small that, 2 or 3 cars and the whole thing is packed up. I don't know. And what are you other guys, what's everybody else thinking?
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm thinking that the original, when they built the high school, because I remember they changed the island down in front. I'm thinking when they built the high school, the original traffic pattern was everything to come in from Alden and go up the hill by the middle school with the buses and then go around and go out. But then they didn't want the buses on Alden so many times. So then they changed that island. If you come up the hill on Alden and you make the right and a quick left into the parking lot, that island was originally different. Then they changed that island to go with the new traffic pattern with the buses coming from the other way. That was done while the school was being built.
Yeah, there were people concerned about traffic on the Alden residents.
Right. So the buses weren't going to come up that way. So they changed it while they were building the school, and they made it so the buses came up Church Street. The Church Street, 70 Church Street. So they made it so the buses came up that way and went around. The problem is so many people drop off and pick up that there's a big long line out in the morning and there's a big long line out in the afternoon. And when people are passing them on the left and the buses go to leave, it's kind of like almost head on. You got cars and buses in the same lane.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can't go back in time because, I mean, somebody must have thought that this will be fine. I mean, a traffic study would have said, when are kids getting dropped off? When are they picking it? But it doesn't sound like we've got anything to fall back on. Yeah, and you think you can get a full lane if you take out that sidewalk? And
Yes, 8 feet up to the light post, the base of the light post, and the curb would go right in front of the light posts.
where's Brian? Can you point to the light post for me?
Sure. So there's one right here. And there's
There's
one.
3 of them. There's one down there.
That's a real narrow lane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
6 to 10 feet.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
mirror.
that's what, I mean, unless you take part of that grassy area too.
The
you got a
grassy
full
area,
lane there.
the grassy area starts to go up the hill. If you do that, then you'll need a retaining wall.
Then
If
you
you
got-
do it right at, and you'll have to move the lights. If you do it the way he put it there, you don't have to move the lights and you don't have to put a retaining wall. It's just a drop off lane. People are gonna pull in that lane. I mean, they could get out of the car and walk on the grass if they wanted
No,
to,
I was,
but nobody's gonna.
I'm more interested in if you got a school bus going down, a school bus going up, and a car parked in that little lane. That's gonna be like, you're gonna have to butter up the car to get it through there.
Mike Harris, do you want to speak to that a little bit in terms of your conversations with Josh?
Sure. Yeah, if I could just back up a little bit, I think when the building was built, it was really kind of shoehorned into the site because you've got a real problematic site with the sloping, with the grades, obviously. And I do remember my first day coming to the campus, trying to figure out where do you enter, coming to the middle school. So even back in the BCS in 2015, we have a line item for traffic study. And there's something that needs to be done at that intersection of Alden, the middle school and the high school. But truly that's a $300,000 fix to try to make it all work. So no doubt that this is, it's a fix that try to accommodate the issue that you deal with on a daily basis.
So Mike,
Yep.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say so we're very restricted in the width because of the fact of the hill. When we laid this out the first time, we were going to it was going to be a little wider. It was going to be a retaining wall, but it's just the costs start to get astronomical. To try to accommodate that, we end with the monies that you have, the length of that passing lane or that stack lane just becomes too short to be practical. So it's kind of a trade-off between getting it long enough to stack enough cars, but also wide enough so that we could accommodate them.
Hey, Perry, can I ask something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't we, I'm just looking at this visually from the top down. How come we don't use the back of the school there to the right where the cafeteria is as just for drop off like they do? Have a full circle, back up there. Have the full circle do it, but up in the corner there, Brian, if you keep going straight up to the end there, make that so that, you have one lane coming around, you'll have to move the other side a little bit, but I mean, just make it a big full circle, like keep going around, Brian, keep going, follow the line. Now, when
But they wouldn't be able to go in the front door if they're dropped off back there. Then they wouldn't be able to go in the front door, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know at that point, but you're making everybody then go all the way around. You'd have to at the top there. Again, it's just a suggestion. I'm just looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you make that a path that it's always a one way, you're going to force everybody to go around in a circle. And then you'd have to put up some sort of barrier or something on the other side. I mean, for the buses, you'd have to, I don't know, you'd have to work on the other side over there. If you take out that island there and, where.
Well, you know what, Claudia, that's not that crazy. I mean, that's if you came in and went to your right where you guys just went all the way around, and there's a crosswalk there, and people would be parking, staff parks in that lot to come in the building. Everyone would have to go up to the right and go all the way around to exit and leave the buses by themselves on the main road.
But where would you drop the kids off?
Come up in the back of the, back to the cafeteria, go into one of the back hallways and put a staff member there on duty to greet them. I mean,
and then everybody flows out. You'd have to reconfigure. You would have to do something with that parking lot because you do have buses. You're going to contend with the buses there for a little bit. But if you make that a full circle, a full circle around the building, like Brian, follow it. Yeah. So you go all the way around. You'd have to do something where the SR officers.
Yeah. But Claudia, how come they couldn't make a right at that crosswalk and go all the way up towards the football field? Then make
because
a left.
the
buses, you have the
buses are there. And then you'd have.
Yeah, one of our goals has always been to keep the parental traffic and the bus traffic as separated as possible. Because what happens is if you commingle them, it takes a much longer time for them to be able to get to the elementary schools, and then the instructional time on the elementary side is shot. So
I
we
get that. I get
try to
that.
keep
Yeah,
them
I can see that.
separated.
That little island there where the sheriff parked his car, I mean, that's just gotta go. I mean, maybe put a roundabout in there. Why can't it be a roundabout? I mean, they go put roundabouts everywhere, all over Poughkeepsie.
Again, we're also talking, you know, a major amount of money. I mean, we're
Yeah,
trying
but
to get
you're not
this.
So real quick,
But
the
you're not
other
gonna-
thing with Paul, if you drop off at the back edge of the cafeteria, then you create a line in that shadow area of the school, which is even worse.
Yeah, and no, I would, and I agree with what Brian's saying, but I was saying, put all the buses up to the front of the high school. If they were to drop off, not like the parents are doing, and park them there, leave the parents totally out of that area and let them go in the back, and the buses would go out to the front, make a left and go down, and then the parents could drop off and come back around where the buses used to be and go out that road. That's, I was just thinking like that, but there's probably a million other reasons why you can't do that.
Oh.
I'm just saying if you did it with, you know.
So
I mean,
can
they
we,
would
let's,
exit
can we,
down- they would exit down Alden, the buses?
Yep.
Yeah, they
You
don't
can't
want, that
exit-
was, that
You
was
can't
something they
exit
didn't
down
want.
on Alden because you got the parents going to drop off at the middle school.
And the town didn't want, that was one of the criteria to avoid, was all the buses going down Alden.
No, but
For-
I'm saying let the parents drop off at the middle school, drop off, and they would go over right to the right where all the high school parents are. So if you had, what time the school starts are the same? Middle school, high school starts the same, right?
Right.
So all the drop off parents would come to your right in the back road that we use right now as a two-way. You have a staff member at the door, they drop off right there, they go to that crosswalk, and you put cones or whatever, and they go up to the right, and they go out where your buses are currently parked in the morning by the middle school. Why do you need them? Put all the buses on the left-hand side, on the front entrance of the school. They'd go out and make the left and go down that way, and then the car.
You can't pass park school buses.
Are you able to see the new map that I overlaid?
I can see what you
No.
got up there right now. Yep. No,
Or
that's
is
what you
it
got
the
up-
same thing that you saw?
it's the same thing we've been looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that, Mike,
Yeah.
Harris,
Oh.
so you think that road, if we took that sidewalk out, that road could basically have two buses and a car pass safely?
There's no doubt, Perry, that it's tight. I agree. I wouldn't want somebody opening up a door when the bus is coming by and stepping out of their car.
I think it's too small.
Okay, yeah, we got your new thing, Brian.
Okay, so this was the point that Ragusa was making. We have so many mics, we've resorted to last names.
Yeah.
So we just have to also be mindful and be careful that we don't send buses down this way, because we have parents coming up and making the left into here to drop off in this circle for the middle school.
Why can't, Brian, if the bus is moved from Alden Acres right in front of the middle school, I'm saying if the bus is moved in the morning and they went to the front of that area, they're coming across. So why couldn't they drop off high school kids, then go to the middle school, drop off middle school kids, then leave and go down that way? Then there'd be no parents coming up because everybody would be going. I mean, I don't know.
There
I don't know
won't,
if that,
could I say something?
Yeah.
There won't be enough time to do that in the afternoon and then make the second bus route. Right now, they have to leave the middle school at a certain time to be
Okay.
able to get the route done, to be back to Alden and Elm. And this year it came down to like the minute when they timed that to leave. When the kids get out, they got to be on the buses, I think, in like 7 minutes and be ready to leave so the buses can leave. The buses won't have time to leave middle school. And then where would they pick the kids up at the high school? They'd have to go they'd have to get from the other way. They'd have to stop at the high school first, then go to the middle school. Right now, the
Yeah.
buses come in the morning, they park, and then all the kids get let out at the same time.
yeah. I'm just
And
thinking
then all
about
the
that.
kids go in at the same time.
And I'm just thinking about that back route. To me, is totally underutilized, and it's like a waste. It's like a waste
Absolutely.
back there.
Absolutely.
And you know what? What are the numbers? Like, how many kids
The
are,
back-
how many kids are dropped off? How many kids take the bus? I mean, do we have the numbers on like that, what that looks like? Is it 80 kids a morning out of our whatever many high school students? How many kids is it? I mean, it could vary from day to day, but I don't know. We should get a grip on that too first. See what the data is before we make decisions.
Yeah, the
Well, they
reason
got
why
a
we didn't,
line, they're addressing a problem. They got a line. So there's enough to create a problem.
that's exactly what, yeah, we didn't delve into that, Paul, because we just know what the current world situation is in terms of what the actual problem is. But
Yeah.
I understand why you'd say that.
No.
All right, so
Apropos of nothing, kind of cool that this is called Blazer Avenue. I have no idea how it got its name, but that's cool.
Could I ask a question about the proposed design? Looking at the sidewalk there, that's sidewalks are not 8 feet wide. So you're talking about cutting into the
grass.
further
Yeah,
into
this-
grass. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. To where the light post is. The base of the light post is about 8'4" from the outside of the curb, the
Okay,
closest one.
And there's only one light post that's a concern, or there's more?
Well, the other two are farther away. The closest one is 8'4".
Okay.
Because I measured all three of them.
Okay. And there would be no concerns about, so you say people are definitely going to stack up. They're going to wait. The kids are not going to get out of the cars.
Right.
In this, that's what you're claiming, right? And that nobody's going to try to cut back in. Whoops, that's fun. Sorry about that. Nobody's going to try to cut back into that lane to get out of there, right? Drop the kid off. way
Nobody's
back.
ever done it before. They drop their kid off right at the front door.
Okay. Everybody waits. Okay.
And then,
What about-
after they drop off, then they go around the back of the high school to get out because the buses are still there. So after they drop off, they go down, they make the right, they go around the back of the school, and then they go out that back road.
Yeah. Yep.
What about sports? I've seen people, all kinds of kids getting out in front of the gym.
Well, that was why after school, instead of we were thinking about ending it before the steps, but we need to go all the way back for sports at the end of the day. There's always cars there for sports too. And the staircase is going to be there. It's going to be cut back a little bit. The staircase will still be there.
And you're right, Tom, that was one of our problems because, look, I know when I pick up my own kid, all the cars are stacked up after volleyball practice and who's going into the left. So it's the same issue. So if we, to Mike's point, if we just ended here, it wasn't going to resolve our whole issue that we're aware of right now.
Can I ask what?
No, my worry is that is where you have kids getting in and out. And if it's a steep hill right on a lawn, they're going to run around to the driver's side to get in. Certainly in the winter, they're going to have to, if there's snow.
But they're going to do whatever they're doing now out in the middle of the road. So now they won't be in the middle of the road anymore. They'll be on the side.
Yeah, but right now you have a sidewalk next to you on the passenger side, so they can enter and exit it from the sidewalk. But you won't have that. You're going to have a grassy, steep bank. And in the winter, it's going to be piled with snow, so they're going to have to go around to the.
Well, you'll have a
driver's side.
sidewalk. Well, Mike, won't you have a sidewalk from the staircase to the lower parking lot? Don't I see a sidewalk? Was
At the
that it?
lower-
Yeah, for
just
that
at the
area.
lower area.
And this is going to be, this is a standing lane, not a parking lane. They're not going to be allowed to park here.
Well, they're not supposed to stand there now, and they do. So where does the snow, Mike, Tom's got a good point. Where are you pushing the snow to? If you cut that whole sidewalk out and, and you said that's a hill there where you can't, you'd need a retaining wall. Where are you going to push the snow from all that?
Well, we have to push the snow past the guardrail down the hill anyway. And then after we get past the going down the hill, in other words, right now we do the sidewalk and the road anyway. So it's basically the same amount of plowing. The only difference is we have to push the snow from the circle. I go back down towards downhill and we have to push it past the guardrail and into the side over there. To the right, going down the hill to the right after the end of the guardrail. It's a lot of moving snow. There's really no place to put snow because we're not supposed to throw it over the wall.
Well, I mean, personally, I assume you guys have gone through every possible reconfiguration of this within the budget that we've got to deal with. Now, this is also the project that's going to contain some internal reconfiguration. Is that right, Brian?
That's right. It's just the it's just the doors that are going to be brought back to create that secure vestibule.
Okay, and I assume replacing the cameras and all that stuff.
Not on this project, no. That might be smart bond work. That might be an additional purchase, but that would be entirely too expensive to get within this project.
Well, maybe we ought to consider some cameras on those light poles. If the light poles are going to stay, if you're going to have people like misbehaving out there,
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Yeah.
All right.
And one of the things that Elliot has identified, just in terms of utilizing all of our aidable monies, is about $35,000 in aidable monies that we might be able to do for cameras on an annual basis. So Elliot's looking into that.
So this is the 175 project?
Yes, sir. Yep.
What's the project? What's the cost for each mini task?
The construction value, the interior lobby, we're calling 10,000. We've got to spend 10,000 to get the 8 on the site. It's $8,000 to $10,000. The site work portion, we figured at about 145,000. And then you've got money for survey, design cost, and testing materials during the construction phase.
Testing material for the roadway?
Well, you've got to test the base material for compaction. You have to test the asphalt. You're going to test the concrete for the sidewalk and the stair.
Okay. And drainage, will drainage take care of here?
Drainage, yeah, the drainage patterns will pretty much stay the same.
Hmm. And making it, Mike Harris, you have a rough estimate on what it would take to make that a full lane, with a retaining wall and moving the lights back?
I spoke with Josh about this, Mike. I don't know if you have it in your head.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, we did initially, we had a design from the loop down to the stair and not past that with a retaining wall over the sidewalk. So we have that number. I can abstract that, but Brian, if you've already got it, please.
No, I don't have it in its entirety, but it was significantly higher. There was that retaining wall added an awful lot. I want to say that it was every bit of at least 2.25.
2.25 versus, so that portion of the project for the.
Yeah, because it also spoke to the need to move the lights.
What's the width of a vehicle?
Thinking about what you're talking about correctly.
What is the width of a vehicle? Somebody's not going to come up right next to the curb and get out.
About 6 feet, 6.5 feet.
Yeah, it's a 9-foot parking lot. A 9-foot parking space is not unusual. Most of them are 10 today because everybody's got big pickup trucks and SUVs.
Yeah,
but
right.
8 foot used to be the standard, and it's grown to 9 to 10.
So somebody coming up is not going to be coming in a small car naturally. They'll have pickups or whatever they're going to have. So I'm just worried about people hanging out into the lane.
Yeah, or buses.
Yeah.
I don't know. I worry that. I see the point, and I think it's important that we try to fix that. But I'm worried that we're gonna create some 3/4 lane, and we're gonna have probably even more problems because people are gonna think they can slide by each other when they can't. I don't know. Bottom line is you guys got to be sure that this is going to solve the problem.
Do we know, because I don't, when in your work on this, Mike and Mike, what is the width of the entire road?
The width of the entire road? No.
Yeah,
I
it
think
seems
it's
to me, what's sticking in my mind is that the new lane is going to be 9 foot for the bulk of it, except for, I guess it's going to narrow as it narrows down toward the light pole and terminates. But maybe what you're getting at is there room to sneak the center line to the left?
You don't have the width of the travel lanes, each travel lane? Does anybody have the width of the travel lane? Up, down?
Not as we sit here.
Well,
Then Josh has got it.
the thing
Well,
is,
I mean,
I
let me
think
finish,
if I
Terry,
remember
Terry.
right, it was 18 feet.
Right. Mike, yeah, when I worked, I dealt with DOT traffic and safety, who would examine things before it would go to design. You don't know the width of the travel lanes as we sit here. It's the pull-off lane is too small. We don't, do we know if the road is even crowned for drainage? There's too many unknowns, and to spend taxpayer money on an unknown, we don't have car counts like Paul said. We don't know how many people are actually doing it. Yes, it's a problem, but to move forward and spend taxpayer money when we don't have even the bare basis information, I think is totally totally wrong.
I think, could I just say, I think if you were going to design it correct, you'd have a 10-foot lane with a 4-foot sidewalk on the passenger side. Because I know you don't intend for people to get out, but they're gonna, and they do. So that's 14 feet, and we're proposing just over half of that width. That to me, that just doesn't seem like a functional solution.
all right, so this is, I mean, the whole point of this was to get some, what is the board thinking about on a few different projects. I mean, I hate spending money because people aren't doing what they're supposed to do. I hate spending money when we're not even sure that it's wide enough to fix the problem. Why don't we sort of just put a pin in this one, and what's the next project proposal?
Sure.
Brian?
So the next project proposal is Elm Drive electrical upgrade. Hold on a second. So we have our original electric from Elm Drive from 1960 or 1964, whenever the building was built. So that service owes us nothing, I would say. Let me just, but it is important that we think about upgrading there. Hold on. Looking to share something. Okay. So this area will look familiar to us, and Mike and Mike are going to take most of this over, and we're going to start. This is kind of the starting point of where we have the electrical into the building. So Mike Harris.
Yeah. So yeah, this is the exterior. You see the 3 tubs on the pole. At some point, they replaced the pole, but you'll see that the risers going up the side of the pole are actually the risers from the pole that was probably there in the 60s. So they kind of cobbed it all together. So obviously, the conduits are going under the driveway to the main disconnect within the building. As Brian said, it's vintage 1965. And what we're proposing is that this gets cleaned up. We pull new conductors and replace the main disconnect, the main switch, as well as the distribution panel within the boiler room as part of phase 1. And then there's a lot of issues with the electrical in Elm Street, the old wiring and the electrical panels, which are obsolete, and they've been out of manufacture. You haven't been able to get parts for 20 years or so. So what we're suggesting is the starting point for the electrical upgrade of that facility starts at the pole and the transformer and works its way in. That's the main switch where the conduits are coming in underground from the pole itself.
So Mike, do we have an actual known, I mean, I get it, it's 50 years old, but do we have a known, like, are we tripping the transformers? Are we seeing electrical leakage into the ground? Do we have known issues other than, it's older than dirt?
No, we know we had a contractor I spoke to today who sees water in the conduits when he looks at the building side. There aren't issues. A lot of this is proactive work just to get ahead of it because of the fact, again, Mike can't replace any of the parts. When he gets to that, he's probably cobbing from one panel to the other to keep the system running.
But there is water in the conduit?
Yeah.
And we're in a spot where we can't replace the parts. So there's two things that confirmed our selection for this that Mike Harris shared with me. He's shared that he's been replacing these panels that we currently have for over 30 years or close to 30 years. And the other piece is that we just can't get the parts here. And that could be a significant issue.
But let me ask, the buildings at Alden and the middle school were built at the same time. Don't they have the same exact problem? And I'm wondering why did you pick Elm over the other ones?
Yeah, actually you've got very similar vintages, and we've earmarked the entrances at both schools to be replaced at some point.
Right.
The middle school would be part of a larger remodel when the day came. I think Elm Street, we selected Elm Street just because it was contained, and it probably is not as extensive a project as the middle school would be, and then of course it fit the budget.
The smallest building, so it makes sense to do it. The other thing that Mike shared was in all his years of doing this, these are probably the oldest panels that he's ever seen.
Yep. Yeah. Most schools, well, over the years, because electrical requirements went up. I mean, most schools would replace their transformer, upsize their transformers, and take care of the gear at the same point. So it didn't take place when it probably didn't need to, because maybe your numbers are building. But it's unusual to see such a vintage package here.
They're worth money as antiques. Is that what you're saying?
Scrap metal.
So, do we own the transformers?
No, the transformers would be the utility.
All right. I thought you said that we would replace our transformers.
Brian,
This project would be from the pole to this box, including the box. Nothing after that.
Phase two would. Go ahead, Mike.
Phase two would pick up from there. So the box on the left is the main switch. If the door were open on the box on the right, that's the distribution panels, and there's a breaker in there for all the boxes that are distributed through the building.
Yeah.
Those are all the same Frank Adams panels. So the thought was that the next project would then start to replace those as well as any other components that are needed.
Right.
Again, up to the budget.
Yeah.
And what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Is it 100? Is that right?
This is our $100,000 project, and then phase two would be our second $100,000 project in 21-22 to actually complete that and pull it off the BCS.
So just for clarity, so all the conduit would be dug up, exposed to replace, so it's watertight?
Well, that's
just running new lines through it.
The conduit going up the pole.
Yeah, we've got to do some testing to figure out where and why. I mean, it'd be nice to think that it's coming in at the speed as opposed to somewhere underneath. But what we'd like to do, and because that's an unknown, what I told Brian is we could look at the project as three components. There's the conduits and the cable to the building. Then there's the box that is actually two boxes, a main disconnect and a main disconnect or a main distribution panel. So depending on the condition of the underground, it may be that we're doing the pole and the main switch, which is that you see here, and that the main distribution panel rolls over into phase two with the rest of the panels. So there's some unknowns there that once we get into design, we'll have a better feel for. But we know that we can segregate the elements of the project so that we can do as much as we can, and again, for the money that you have.
Brian, do you have the other picture so they could see the size of the panels compared to the doorway?
No.
Oh, okay.
I didn't save that on this batch.
I'm
That
sure-
main panel is 7 feet tall. Those two panels are 7 feet tall. Those right there.
I'm sure the neighbors on Elm will appreciate a new telephone pole there. That'll be cleaned up and not look so unsightly.
Or they're taking the actual pole, the whole pole out and everything?
Well, they'll clean it up. Won't they clean it up?
Yeah. it
Yeah, they're
would
gonna
be-
clean up the old piping going into the new piping. The pole is new. The piping is old coming up out of the ground.
They're not even really attached at the bottom.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So,
All right.
nothing sexy, but important work that needs to get done. And again, we're talking about utilities that are 60 years old.
Well, and I mean, to me, if there's water in the conduit and, all it's going to take is a break in the insulation and we end up with a short that blows the panel. I just, to me, that's just a bad situation waiting to happen.
Right.
Okay. But did you have other projects that you wanted to, were other candidates, Brian?
No, the ones that we discussed previously were really just emergency lighting projects. And the issue with that is you're not talking about a heck of a lot of money because, again, one of the constraints of doing these projects is it's got to be in the same building. So even if you have $30,000 of worth of project, it's not like we can say we'll do $30,000 in Elm, 30 in Alden, and 30 at the middle school. It's got to be in one building, the way that the Aidability runs, and frankly, the way you submit any building project. So that was really where we were with the recommendations. And again, the electrical generator that we looked at, it was just way over budget to be able to do. It landed in the $190,000 $200,000 range, and so did the middle school fire alarm. And our challenge is when we calculate our tax levy limit. Our tax levy limit assumes all of our debt service, our mortgage payments on capital projects, and it includes any capital projects that we're going to do. So we want to take advantage of that, and we did file our tax levy limit at 2.27. So included in the budget as it is right now is a $175,000 project and a $100,000 project.
Now, what you're asking for tonight is like conceptual approval. I mean, the fact that because I really don't think, I don't know, I don't feel like, and I think the board, or at least part of the board, that has a problem with that roadway.
Yeah.
Being, is that going to solve the problem?
Would the 175 cover the Alden pole to the box? I know you guys got to think about that, but
Yeah, I don't, thanks for saying that, John. I wouldn't know off the top of my head. I'd have to go to the line items on the BCS and look at the escalation factors. And Mike, do either of you have any feel for that?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking, I mean, so we've got $100,000 earmarked for Elm as it stands.
Right.
So I think that 75 would pick up the unknowns. It would take care of the conduit. So certainly it would cover the cost of the exterior, including both of the interior boxes. I'm thinking, I can verify that for you.
No, I'm sorry. I thought John's question, unless I missed,
no, it's about Alden. Yeah.
John's question was about doing the entirety of an electrical upgrade at Alden Place for the $175.
Oh, Alden. We'd have to pull I'm sorry, John, we'd have to pull the BCS off. I'm not sure.
Yeah, in addition, so 100, you got your 100, you got 175.
And the generator project, Brian, was that primarily to run it wasn't to run everything, like all the buildings. It was to run critical infrastructure, right?
Yes, that's right. A critical infrastructure and large gathering spaces so we needed to be able to continue to run auditorium, gymnasium, kitchen and cafeteria. And of course, the reason why it would be eligible for Smart Bond in the first place was that it will keep our server closet up and running and make sure that we have access to all of our infrastructure systems. Yeah. So that's, and we're just not able to pull that off with what we have in either case.
I was sort of thinking if we made the generator, if we focus the generator on basically networking and alarming. I mean, if we end up staying out, and I don't know how this whole thing plays out, but if we end up staying out of school till God knows when, that network becomes, critical to us moving forward. Not just, well, the network's out today, so everybody pull out their books. This becomes, you can't get to your files, can't get to the records, can't register kids, can't do any of the stuff that we're asking everybody to do. I was curious as to whether is there a way to split the generator projects, where you put a generator for critical infrastructure, not the running the entire auditorium and cafeteria and those, but could we get one? I don't know. I'm just or do we just punt? I mean,
we did a study, must have been 3 years ago, for the generator, and I think it indicated various sizes on how much capacity, obviously, that you could facilities. So you're looking for what you're talking about is basically a scaled down size that's affordable. That would not even supportable, but so that you could, there's no reason we couldn't put a generator that's specifically focused on critical infrastructure, network, that kind of stuff, and then at some later point put a second generator in that really deals with the I don't want to say not non-critical, but the less critical aspects of the school. Or we do like John said and get the electrical system at Alden. If it's the same as Elm, can we get that done? Because could we get that done for
the 175?
The 175. With the generator, you want to be able to access the building, so you don't want the the badge system to go down. You don't want the network to go down. All the things that you just cannot afford to lose. Could that be done with a separate generator project that's within the restraints we have or constraints we have?
What about plumbing? Just rough in the whole generator pad, all the components where you just have to drop the generator as step 2. Just divide it into 2 projects. So you got your pad in, you're all roughed in, you got your switch and everything, and then you just buy the generator as step 2 and drop it on the pad and connect it.
All right, so let me make a suggestion, and you could tell me how you feel about this. It sounds like you're mostly comfortable with the Elm Drive 1960 vintage, and moving forward on that. Really not hot on the high school project due to the fact that we're dealing with some either potentially unanticipated consequences or there are just too many unknowns. What if it were true that we in relatively short order, because again, this needs to be part of a budget document that we put out. So might we have what if we were to create some version of a subcommittee where we have a couple of board members who would be on the subcommittee working with me, Mike, and Laura, and just fleshing this out a little bit more, getting some version of a comfort level, and you guys would we'd communicate with you, but you'd kind of give deference to the board subcommittee in giving conceptual approval with additional information coming back at you. And then also, frankly, I don't know if you're changing your board meeting calendar, but we are meeting again May 5th. And I don't think that a timeline of another week, depending on what's declared for a budget vote that we just don't know yet, is going to be of major issue. Would anybody, number one, is there any merit to that idea? And number two, if so, do we have people who would be interested in serving on that subcommittee for some work over the next week?
All right.
We have
Go
a
ahead, John.
facilities committee. We have a facilities committee. I'll be happy to be part of it.
I mean, I think we have stuff that's got to get done. You know, I think we've left the fact that the electrical system is 50 years old. We can't keep letting things go. So we have to address some situations. The thing that worries, I think, pretty much everybody that on the board is, does that solution in the front solve a problem? Or is it just sort of covering up one aspect of the fact that that whole traffic pattern is a mess? You know, we got buses parked on the side. We got buses over on the other side. We can't go to the right, but you can go to the left. You can't. I mean, so I don't think anybody is, hopping up and down that we can't, that there's like, we shouldn't do anything. I think it's more about, is it going to work? You know? I mean, does anybody have a problem with, maybe John and I don't know. I mean, it can only be 3 at the most board members without it being a board meeting. I think we owe it to ourselves to start getting some of this resolved. Does anybody have an issue with that? Like having a subcommittee sort of work this offline and give us a set of recommendations?
Perry, I'll help out.
Yeah. I mean, as long as your Zoom is working, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. All right. Well,
I have John and Claudia, and thank you for that.
Yeah. Howard, can you join in with this team?
No, thank you. Not at this time.
I think I can. I think I might be on the facilities committee.
Okay. All right. So Jen, Claudia, and John.
Thank you, Jen.
Yep.
Great. We'll be in touch. And Mike, in preparation for that, if you could just look at the Alden Place service.
Sure. Hey, Brian, I'm just thinking if possible, I'd like to put to bed any of the questions, even if we're not going to move forward with the road in front of the high school, just to put to bed the questions that were asked tonight. Josh probably has those answers. He was at the site. He's looked at the drawings. So if we could get a Zoom meeting together, I'd pull him in and he can answer the questions that I couldn't respond to tonight.
That's great.
It probably isn't going to solve the problem for everybody and we're going to move forward with it, but at least you'll know that we've looked into it.
No, that'll be good. If there's some if there are some low level issues that are easily rectified, then, then that project may be able to be resurrected. But
well, especially,
option,
have you the different possible traffic flows? If you had the people come in, go to the right, go around the back part of the building, is there a way to drop them off there and keep it moving? Is there a way to, like send everybody out Alden and in from Church? Is there, to make that a one-way thing? I'm assuming all those sort of traffic patterns have been looked at. But if you can just take the subcommittee through like, we looked at this, here's the problem, it won't work. If we looked at this, it won't work.
Right.
Right. All right.
Yep.
Good.
We did look at a couple of different traffic patterns. We even looked at moving the gate. We looked at a lot of different things, and that was the best.
Enlarging an island, there was, enlarging.
Yeah.
Brian, which way do the buses come in the morning? They come up where? They come up Walden, and where do they go when they come in?
They
I
come
know they
up
all end up,
church.
they all end up in front of your office
Yep.
area, right? Dropping off.
Yep.
Okay, so,
They come
so-
up church.
okay. So if the parents came up that way and went around the front of the high school and went to the back and made the left and went all the way around and still dropped off by the auditorium. And then when the buses let the kids off, the kids go to the buildings and the buses pull away, right?
The
The buses pull away and go back down church. They go the
Okay,
same
so
way
how
they
come the
came.
parents, how come the parents couldn't drop off behind, come to the front of the high school, then drop off behind and they can go out behind the buses?
Paul, say that again. I missed it.
How come the parent drop offs? No, they don't pass the buses. They wait till the buses drop off all the kids first. All the kids go into the buildings. They come up to the front of the high school and they go past the high school entrance, go down, make the left, go around the back of the building, drop the kids off at the auditorium entrance, and then they go up and the buses, once they drop the kids off, they should be out of the way. The parents should be able to go down the same way.
If I'm understanding you right, and I'm not guaranteeing that that's on me, but I think that would make the kids late if they wait for all the other for the buses to empty and then the kids got out of their parents' car.
No. I'm not saying they could let their kids out in the back of the high school logistically.
if they would drop it off
they-
by the music room, they'd bottleneck where the buses couldn't get in.
Okay.
They'd walk into the building, but you guys can discuss all of that. But I'm just saying, to me, go from the opposite end now and come up church as a parent, go past the front of the high school, go back around the building, drop off behind, like Claudia said. Then you turn to your right, go towards the football field. At that, I'm not saying wait to let their kids out. Their kids can go in the back, and the other kids are going to come out of the buses, go into the high school and the middle school. Everybody leaves, and the parents should be able to follow behind. They're not passing the buses. Let the
Yeah,
kids
but
out first.
The parents are going to get aggravated, sitting there waiting for they already do. If they happen to get up in that parking lot, then they go out the wrong way, so they don't end up getting stuck behind the buses.
Right.
I think we're going to, but take a look at those. Sorry?
We did it.
Yeah, just take a look at what other options we might have and see if there's any way to resolve it.
We did. Don't forget the buses are there for 15 minutes in the morning
Okay.
and 15 minutes in the afternoon. The parents aren't going to want to wait 15 minutes to get out.
Nope.
Okay. All right. So you guys are going to take a look at this and
Okay.
all right.
Good deal. So thank you for those who will be in touch with later in the week.
Okay.
All right. Mike and Mike, thanks for everything.
Hey,
Thank you.
thanks. Good to see everybody.
Night.
See you, Mike.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Okay.
you, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well,
All right. Do we have, I think the next thing is executive session.
Yep, I'm just
wait,
letting
hold on,
Julie
I'm gonna
know.
Okay.
Get out.
Do we have a motion?
So
I'll
moved.
make the
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Okay. All
I'm
right.
just waiting for Julie to come in, Perry.
Okay.
I'm gonna start putting you in your room now.
Can you do that before she gets here?
Yeah, I think so, because I can add her to the room when she gets in.
All right.
Bless you.
This Caroline and Brian are going in this one, right?
Geez, I don't know.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
There, it's
Thank
happening.
you.
I'll be right back.
Thank you, Cheryl. Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and then the next one will be different.
Is that Brian's house or is that his home? Is that off the office?
That's his
That's
office.
his office.
It's a basement room that he
Are
hangs
you
out in.
guys,
Ha ha ha.
you guys are going to the room? What's happening? Hold on one second, Julie. Okay, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, I'm gonna put you into the breakout room so you can join them.
Awesome. Thank you. Hi, Brian.
How are you,
Brian,
Julie?
you should
I'm
have
good, how
that
are you?
invite.
Great, thanks.
Oh,
Hold on.
good.
See you in a sec.
Okay. Join.
There you go.